Today we're putting two very different companies against each other. On one hand, we have Jim Green, a pretty well-known South African boot company that's been cranking out high-quality boots since 1992. And on the other hand, the relatively young in comparison Lems Shoes, based in Boulder, Colorado, and putting out foot-shaped active and casual style footwear since 2011. So what do these companies have in common? In 2023, Lems put out the Boulder Summit and later the Boulder Grip, two juggernaut barefoot style boots that were very much anticipated by the market. Meanwhile, in the same year, Jim Green decided to dip their toe in the barefoot shoe market with the Barefoot African Ranger, bringing their rugged and quality construction of traditional leather boots into the barefoot space. But does it have what it takes to stand up to our favorite offerings from Lems? That's the question we're looking to answer as we set these two companies to go toe to toe. Hey there folks, I'm glad you're here. My name is Chris and this is the Sons of Sever YouTube channel where there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear. Today we are doing a very different video, a toe-to-toe-to-toe video to compare three boots against each other. Really, we're taking two boots and comparing them against one boot. Eric and I each have a favorite boot from Lems. Eric's is the Boulder Grip, mine is the Boulder Summit. They both came out in 2023. Then comes swooping in Jim Green with a haymaker, a traditional boot company that has very deep roots, and they come out with a barefoot boot of their own, the Barefoot African Ranger. A lot of people keep asking us in the comment sections of the videos for all of these shoes comparison questions. Hopefully this will answer a lot of your guys' questions when it comes to comparisons between these products. We're going to ping pong things back and forth between me and Eric talking about important categories that boots should meet. As always, there's going to be timestamps down in the description so you can hop around between different categories if you're more interested in some than others. But to kick us off, I'm going to send things over to Eric to get into our first category.
So the first thing that I want to talk about is the weight difference of these three boots. And the Jim Green African Ranger comes in at the heaviest, it's 1.17 pounds. Next up is the Boulder Summit, it's 14.8 ounces. And then you've got the Boulder Boot Grip, which is 14.1 ounces. And when it comes to the weight for me, depending on my use case is where this really plays in. If I want to take one of these out hiking, then you want it to have as little weight as possible with as much protection as possible. And I think the one best suited for that case is the Boulder Boot Summit. Now, when it comes to other situations where the weight really doesn't matter quite as much because I'm not exerting myself physically, then it's really kind of negligible for me. I mean, the difference between 1.17 pounds and 14.1 ounces really isn't that big. Yes, you notice it, but am I going to get more tired wearing the Jim Green casually than I am the Boulder Boot Grip? Probably not. So again, when it comes to the weight, just think about the way that you want to use this thing, and I think that will highlight which one of these will work best for you.
First category of comparison that I'm going to be touching on is going to be construction. So the first thing I want to mention is that all three of these boots come in a full grain leather. Where things get different when it comes to the upper and the use of that full grain leather is mainly going to be at the toe and the heel, where we have double layers. When you're looking at the Lems offerings, we do not have a toe cap at all, and then the heel is actually a false toe cap, so it's sewn to look like a double layered toe cap. But if you reach in there and you feel around, you can tell that there's just one layer of leather in there. They definitely have something in there that's making it a little bit more rigid, but I don't think it's two layers of leather. Now, one thing to mention with these guys is they do come with a waterproof membrane. That's important because it does add a second layer to the boot, so a little bit more construction there, but definitely not as much protection and rugged ability as the double layers on the African Ranger. Getting into the soles, let's start with the construction of the Lems. I'll use the Summit because it actually has some of that exposed. We have our rubber outsole, which you can see here at the front and at the back. In the middle, this is actually exposed EVA midsole. But then obviously we have our traction pattern in the bottom, and we will talk about that later. But getting into the Ranger, I think the sole construction is probably one of the reasons why, as Eric mentioned, this thing is way heavier than the other two, but it's also a reason why this thing is probably going to be way more rugged and have a lot more longevity. We've got a couple different layers, and you can see them. We have the outsole, a rubber midsole, and a leather footbed. Basically, that makes this thing maximally resolable. So going and having this thing resoled by a good cobbler is going to be pretty easy for you for the most part. Anecdotally, we must mention there was a commenter in one of our comment sections who mentioned that he was able to have somebody resole one of his Boulder variations. I think it's important to mention that these things are serviceable, just not necessarily as serviceable as the Ranger, and we do have to give the W to the Ranger in the category of construction, because this thing is just so well thought out and so well put together, and you wouldn't expect anything different from Jim Green.
All right, next up, let's talk about the comfort of the three boots. Right out of the box, the Lems are more comfortable. And out of those two, I would say the grip is more comfortable because it's more flexible than the Summit. So it really doesn't require a break-in period at all. It's kind of splitting hairs though, because we took the Summits on a difficult 8-mile, 2,800 feet elevation gain hike in the snow the day after we got them, and our feet were just fine. The African Rangers are comfy out of the box, and they just get comfier over time as the veg tan leather insole molds to your foot. The African Rangers do have more volume than the Lems, so if that's important to your feet, then make sure to note that. Chris will talk more about that when he talks about the differences in the toe box, but I do think that the Boulder boot grip is the most comfortable of the three. It strikes that balance between having ground feel and enough under your foot to go hiking with, and just overall, it's a very, very comfortable boot. I really like it.
Next category of comparison I'm going to talk about when it comes to these boots is traction pattern. If you watched our dedicated review of the Barefoot African Ranger, then you know I gave high praise to the outsole for its ability to feel almost sticky to frozen surfaces. One of my biggest downsides to the Boulder boot grip was that the new outsole, while definitely an upgrade from previous versions of the Boulder boot, wasn't quite up to snuff, especially compared to the Summit and the Outlander. They have the exact same traction pattern on the bottom. I just think that this does a better job all around. I even think this does better than the African Ranger. While it doesn't have the sticky quality to those frozen surfaces, it does well on those frozen surfaces, and it does fantastic in snow and then crushes on pretty much every other material. The disadvantage of the Ranger is it's not going to do so great in snow when it comes to traction. While we do have some big, nice spaced out lugs, you'll notice that the lugs on the Summit are a little bit more spread out. There's a little bit more surface area being spread across the outsole of this specific shoe. I would say that this actually does better in snow than the Boulder grip traction pattern does. So if I had to rank them in order, I would say that the Summit wins it for me at number 1. The Barefoot African Ranger comes in at a close second, and the Boulder grip comes in at a very strong third. This grip is not bad, it's just not as good as these other two. Before I send things back over to Eric, I want to mention some affiliates, one of which is Lems Shoes. This is the nitro version of the Boulder Summit, which I love because it's not leather, doesn't have to be upkept. I'm not really considering this in this video because we've got all leather boots otherwise. Some of you may think that we're a little bit of Lems shills, and we do love Lems, but I'm actually going to leave you on a cliffhanger here. I am doing a review of one of their shoes that I don't love. If I were to give it a rating of 1 to 10 like we used to do, it'd probably get a 3. So if you're interested in seeing that review, what shoe that is, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you're interested in checking out some of Lem's fantastic options like the Boulder Grip or the Boulder Summit, make sure to head down to the link down in the description. I also want to mention a local shoe brand that we love, and that is Splay Shoes. Splays have fantastically wide toe boxes. That'll come up later in this video. I'll use one of these shoes as an example, but but this is the Freestyle. We have a review of this shoe up on the channel. You can get to that through this card. And this is the new leather Freestyle, a little bit more formal. There will be a dedicated review of this specific shoe sometime in the near future, but we really love splay. They're very minimal, 5 millimeters on the stack height, amazingly wide toe boxes, and we think they also look fantastic. If you're interested in splay, head down to the link in the description. I'm gonna pass things over to Eric for our next category of comparison.
All right, let's talk about the stack height with these three boots. And this one can actually get kind of convoluted and a little bit confusing. And I'll say for the Lems boots, things just seem to change up on their website every once in a while. So right now what we've found is, according to their website, the summits are either 20.5 or 21.5 millimeters. The Boulder boot grip, when they first came out, we calculated it out to be 16.5 millimeters, but now the insole seems to have changed thicknesses. I thought it was 3.5. The website's now saying 5.5. So it could be that the Boulder boot grip is 18.5 millimeters. We need to check with our rep about this and see what's going on with that. And then the Gym Green African Rangers is 13.5 millimeters. So there's also a little bit of question as to which ones of these are actually zero drop or not. And as far as I can tell, the Boulder grip definitely is zero drop. The summits have always been a little questionable if they're 2.5 millimeters to 3 millimeter drop. And then the Gym Green African Ranger definitely has a 2.5 millimeter leather piece on the heel that would make it not zero drop. Anvil talks about that in his video when he cuts it in half. So we're pretty sure that the Boulder boot grip is the only one that's actually zero drop, although the Gym Green and the Summit do feel very flat. Those millimeters on your heel really aren't that noticeable in our opinion. As far as their ground feel goes, the stack height directly correlates to how much feel you get out of each one of these boots. So we get the most out of the African Rangers, who have the thinnest stack height. The grips are in the middle, and we get the least amount of feel out of the Summits. Because of that, when it comes to the most grueling hikes, we think that your feet would be happiest in the Summits. But for all other situations, and especially off the trail, either the Gym Green or the Boulder boot grip are going to be better barefoot conscious choices. The African Rangers and grips are pretty equally flexible, and the Summits are easily the least flexible.
As I teased in the affiliate break, we are going to talk about the width of the toe boxes. Now, I'm just going to use one of the Lems offerings because the toe boxes are almost identical in feel. The website actually says that the Summit is in the widest category and that the grip is just in the wide category. I think that's a mistake. I think they are the same width, but we're going to use the Summit for this comparison. You'll see that we do have a nice wide toe box, especially where my pinky toe ends to where my big toe starts. Widest point down here, and then we have a bit of a slope. Now, the African Ranger doesn't have too much more room, but it's just more rounded. The taper is not nearly as dramatic over on this side. This is going to be a criticism that I have of both of these brands because I really like the splay toe box. It does have that taper, but you'll notice that the toe box in general is very boxy. I'm not going to be able to give a clear winner here because it kind of comes down to the shape of your feet at the end of the day. I even find that the Lems specifically, they actually break in to be wider over time if your feet do press out, but if your foot is more sloped, this toe box is going to be good for you. If your foot is more rounded or square-ish, this one's going to be better for you. Eric and I have found that both of these toe boxes are plenty of space for us. Personally, I prefer the Lems. One last thing to touch on is the volume. The Gym Green is definitely the more voluminous shoe. So if you have extremely high arches and you tend to have tightness on the top of your foot from shoes, then the Barefoot African Ranger would probably be the one you want to go with. Personally, it's a little too much volume for me. I have to tie these really tight to get them down on my foot to make it feel like the top of my foot isn't just sloshing around. I feel like the Summit and the grip give me the perfect amount of volume for my specific feet.
Okay, next up, let's talk about the sizing of the boots. And for us, these have all proven to be more or less true to size. I do think that the grip and the Summit might just just barely be on the smaller side of true to size, while the gym green might be just barely on the larger side. I don't think that it's enough to constitute going a half size bigger in the Lems or smaller on the Rangers, but if you find that you're pushing the upper end of your size, then yeah, maybe a half size bigger in the Summit or Grip will keep your feet happy.
The last thing I'm going to talk about is going to be really simple, and then I'm going to give you my winner for this grouping, and I'm going to be talking about price before that. So starting with the lowest and working our way up, the Boulder Grip comes in at $180. The Boulder Summit comes in at $185, and the Barefoot African Ranger comes in at $189. Obviously, that price difference is going to be pretty negligible. Now, which one would I choose if I could only choose one? I don't think this is going to come as any surprise to anybody, but it's going to be the Summit for me. I've talked about it in past videos, but I love the raw versatility of the Boulder Summit. This specific pair, the black leather ones, look really good at church. These are actually the shoe that I've been wearing the most as the snow has hit us hard here in Utah when it comes to my job as a delivery driver. I know this is a comment I make often that makes a lot of people upset because they think it doesn't matter, but it matters to me. I can slip this on and off like a glove, and I love that. I can't set up the other two to do that quite as well. So it's really quick and easy grab and slide on for me when it comes to reaching for a boot to go out and shovel snow, reach for a boot to go out and take my son and my dog on a walk. It's just an easy choice for me to make when it comes to the Boulder Summit. Now I'm gonna pass things back over to Eric. He is going to give you his winner and the outro for the video.
All right, so when it comes to my winner of the three boots, this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody who's been watching our reviews throughout the fall and winter on boots, and it's the Boulder Boot Grip. So in my opinion, the only arena where the gym green beats the Boulder Boot Grip is durability and construction, which is a really big deal. But my experience with the Boulder Boot Grip overall has just been better than the African Rangers. If I was looking for more of a shop or a work boot, then the gym green is easily the choice. If you're looking for the most versatile boot, one that can go on hikes, give you a great barefoot experience, be dressed up and down, then the Grip is the one. And this is a situation I find myself in. If you're looking for the most rugged leather hiking boot that has barefoot qualities, then we think that the Summit is hard to beat. Alright, thank y'all so much for watching this video. We really appreciate it. We hope that you found all this information useful to you. What we really want is to have you be able to make an informed decision. And we know that a lot of people have been looking at these three boots. They seem to be some of the more popular ones out there. And we just wanted to give you our experience with all three of them. And again, hopefully help you to wade through all the information out there and find your situation and which one of these is gonna work best for you. I also want to remind everybody about our toe spacer challenge that we're going to be doing. So Chris and I really want our feet to be as healthy as possible. We want that for everybody else too. And so we are going to be wearing toe spacers a few hours a day for a whole year straight. And Barefoot Shoes just came out with their own toe spacers and we really like them. You can use our affiliate link down in the description to get to their website, and by using that you can get a 10% discount on those toe spacers. So you can go and pick yourself up a pair and join us in our year-long toe spacer challenge and see what it does to your feet over such a long period of time. We're really excited about doing that. Again, come and follow along with us in all these different places on the internet. We have an Instagram account associated with this page, and we have a Strava account that we'd love for you to come and be a part of. We also have a Patreon, which is new in 2024, and the subscription to that is just $1 a month, and with that you'll get exclusive content from us, more behind the scene things and more up-to-date posts about the gear that we're getting in our hands and what we're doing with it. So thank you all so much, and we will see you in the mountains.